Gentlemen, and my one lady viewer, hi.
How you doing?
Today we're going to talk about something that doesn't like us very much. We love it, but it hates us. We do everything in our power to get it, and it just disappears as fast as it possibly can.
And it's gone.
I'm talking about money. That line is from Margaritaville, a South Park episode that explains the economy, shows us how and why it's broken, and proposes a crazy solution. Margaritaville is also very different from other South Park episodes because it doesn't mock Christianity like usual. Not that much anyway. In fact, Margaritaville copies a lot of lessons from the life of Jesus. As a good Catholic boy who hasn't gone to church in about forever, this is one of the few South Park episodes that I can laugh at without feeling like I'm going to hell. So, let's get down to South Park and find out why Jesus can fix the economy. Margaritaville opens with Stan arguing with his dad. His grandma just gave him $100 and Stan wants to spend it. But his dad has other ideas.
And my dad said I need to put it in the bank so it can grow over the years.
The banker talks a big game.
We can put that check in a money market mutual fund. Then we'll reinvest the earnings into foreign currency accounts with compounding interest, and it's gone.
There's a bit of a stare down as Stan tries to process what just happened. But the banker goes on to explain.
The money in your account, it didn't do too well, it's gone.
Stan does what we all would do in this situation. He fails to beat the crap out of that smug banker and feed him his own intestines. Once the banker realizes Stan doesn't have the balls to beat him up, he kicks him out. Very politely, I might add.
I'm sorry, sir, but this line is for bank members only. Please stand aside for people who actually have money with us. Next, please.
An old lady comes up next and gets a taste of the banker's routine.
Hey, we can just put that into your retirement account and make it go to work for you, and it's gone.
Randy tries to intervene.
Hey, I'm trying to teach my son the importance of savings. You already lost his money?
The banker decides to be helpful this time.
Oh, Mr. Marsh, don't worry. We can just transfer money from your account into a portfolio with your son, and it's gone.
Randy gets the standard treatment the bank reserves for its clients.
This line is for people who have money with the bank only. Please step aside.
Everybody in South Park loses money, and for no reason at all. The economy crashes. Margaritaville came out in March 2009, so it's hard to know exactly what they were parodying.
It's like all the money just vanished. We've got no money to pay our mortgage now. First the money started going, and now everyone's getting laid off work.
It gets worse.
They took our jobs.
They took our job!
And whenever there's a crisis, people start to look for someone to blame. There's a lot of rants about the usual suspects.
Because the government kept interest rates too low for too long.
Wall Street brokers, fat cats with corporate greed.
It is the Jews!
But Randy is the only one who's kinda right.
See, there's a bunch of idiots out there who weren't happy with what they had. Materialistic things that they didn't even need.
Once Randy gets going, there's just absolutely no stopping him.
People with no money who got loans to buy frivolous things they had no business buying.
As Randy says this, he is walking to a spanking new Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville margarita machine, which he bought with the payment plan. The irony is thick, but luckily Randy's skull is thicker.
These assholes just blindly started buying any stupid thing that looked appealing because they thought money was endless.
He keeps ranting, but that rant is drowned out by the roar of the margarita machine.
And the idiots couldn't see that by doing all this frivolous spending, they were mocking the economy. And they made the economy very angry.
So, who are these idiots? Randy is one of them, obviously. Probably the biggest of them. But thankfully, he'll never find out. Trey Parker and Matt Stone made this episode because they believe that the average American doesn't understand the economy. It's a nebulous and unknowable thing, just like God. But Trey and Matt made one big mistake. They forgot that 65% of Americans believe they are above average. The remaining 99% are not just above average, they're geniuses. This average person that South Park is targeting just doesn't exist.
I am pretty smart, yay.
But Trey and Matt keep trying anyway. After preaching to his family, Randy takes his message to the streets.
But the fault lies in all of you. It is time to stop pointing fingers. Finger pointing gets us nowhere. Steve!
Yeah, Randy is the perfect hypocrite. So hypocritical, he doesn't even know that he's a hypocrite.
We have mocked our economy. And now the economy has cast its vengeance upon us all.
Nevertheless, people believe him, for whatever reason. His message resonates with folks.
He's right. This is the first guy to actually make sense.
Our genius prophet Randy has a solution to everything.
To repent, we must stop frivolous spending. Cut spending to only the bare essentials. Water and bread and margaritas, yeah.
Framing the economy as a vengeful god that has to be placated is a deliberate choice by South Park's creator. They really want to drive home the fact that most Americans just don't understand the economy at all. It's just something they hear about, but they couldn't explain, even if you push them into a corner and held a gun to their heads. But as we have already established, that is a stupid assumption. There is no such thing as an average American. All Americans are exceptional. Average people live in the other countries like Europe, and Berlin, and New Jersey. These average folks can't understand anything because kilometers have rotted away their brains. So Matt and Trey go out of their way to explain why these average people don't understand the economy. So while Randy convinces people to wear bed sheets, ride llamas, and play with squirrels, Stan tries to return his dad's stupid margarita machine. Stan's frustration showed the first reason why people don't understand the economy. Finance types use intentionally convoluted language to confuse people. This starts at the store. The guy at the counter pronounces everything weirdly to make simple words sound fancy.
Could you please just put the receipt here on this tablet? We need a new Ethernet cable. I'm afraid it's not doable. So.
In the real world, finance types like to throw around phrases like quantitative easing, Bacchus Kehoe-Kidlin puzzle, and deleverage donut security. Recently, when the Fed lowered interest rates, it was mostly reported as Federal Reserve cuts federal funds rate by 50 basis points. If they were to report it as Federal Reserve reduces lending rates by 0.5%, something terrible would happen. You would actually start to understand what the heck they're saying. And that cannot be allowed to happen. They have to keep you confused. But what exactly are our financial overlords hiding behind all these confusing words? Well, Stan is about to find out when he gets a second tactic in the finance playbook.
Well, an outside financing company handles those payment plans. I'm not really sure how it works. You'll have to speak with the people at the top.
So, Stan gets sent to the finance company. This is an apology for the authority fallacy that we're forced to just accept, especially when it comes to the economy. We tend to assume that just because people occupy a position of authority, they know what they're doing. But do they?
Yeah, so the problem is your Margaritaville payment plan has been combined with thousands of others into one big Margaritaville security.
So, Stan gets kicked further upstairs to Wall Street.
Because a bunch of people like you are defaulting on their Margaritaville, so the government had to buy the Margaritaville assets from the banks.
Stan is now getting very frustrated as Wall Street kicks him further upstairs.
Just talk to the Treasury Department in D.C. They're the ones who really understand how all this works.
And this gentleman, and lady, is the problem with the authority fallacy. Everybody thinks the person above them understands what's going on. But do they really? When Stan gets to the Treasury Department, it looks like he's finally gonna get help.
I want to return this Margaritaville.
No problem. We just need to consult the chart. We can determine your property's value and we'll be done.
Stan is just so relieved that he is finally getting help.
Really? Thank you.
The Treasury boys come back with a valuation for the Margaritaville, and Stan can't believe it.
Excellent news, sir. We've determined the investment value of your Margaritaville to be $90 trillion.
It's as absurd as it sounds.
What?
Oh, he is not getting the money.
Well, you don't get $90 trillion, but the chart says that's what it's worth.
So what the hell is this chart? When the Treasury boys get called away because an insurance company is about to go under, Stan follows them and sees this chart for himself. And it's actually just that. A chart. They cut the head of a chicken and let it run around on the chart until it collapses. Then they do whatever is on the box the headless chicken collapses on. This is such an insightful conclusion by Matt and Trey. That's the dirty secret behind all the jargon. The people at the top don't know what the hell they're doing. They're just making it up as they go along. And it's not a conspiracy theory or anything, it's just the nature of the beast. Economics is what is classified as a social science. And here's a rule of thumb. Whenever you hear the term social science, just replace social with fake. Real sciences rely on experimental evidence. You have a theory, which they call a hypothesis, for reasons. Then you conduct an experiment to test that hypothesis. Here is a simple hypothesis. I tell you that if you like this video, your Johnson will grow 2 inches longer. So what do? You test it, of course. You like this video, and then, to check, you stick your hand down your pants, and guess what? Little Johnson is quickly becoming Big Johnson. Alright, now take your hand out of your pants, please. People might see you. But there is no such thing in economics. Theories never get tested because an experiment would have to involve changing the economic system of a whole entire country. If you theorize that raising taxes will help the economy, Congress blocks you or another president comes and reduces taxes so you never get to see your hypothesis is correct or not. Then another president reverses the policy and another one brings it back on until the end of time. So, you go on believing that your theory is correct, and the guy with the opposite theory also believes that he's correct. So you both go on MSNBC and argue until viewers change the channel. That's why you have jokes like this. If you ask 10 economists a question, you will get 11 different answers. And here's another one. Economists have predicted 9 out of the last 3 recessions. Or this one. Economists are people who are too smart for their own good and not smart enough for anybody else's. Economists only agree on the basics. Unemployment is bad, trade is good, and war is bad. These are all very complicated issues that the rest of us commoners can't figure out on our own. So please sit patiently and wait for an economist to come and tell you that. All economists believe they're right because their theories never get tested out in the real world. And because they believe they're right and they bamboozle us with words we don't understand, we let them run our banks and every other financial institution until they give us the gift of a financial crash and we realize they were just making it up as they went along. Then another group of economists come along and tell us that they know better, so we put them in charge, and then they do it all over again. All of this sounds very doomer-ish. Is there hope? Yeah, but it's complicated. Now we know that the guys at the top have no idea what's going on. Does this mean that the commoners do? Do we know how to manage an economy better than the experts? Kinda. But as I said, it's complicated. While Stan is figuring out that our overlords are actually incompetent, his dad keeps preaching the gospel of austerity.
Oh, thou canst shop in a sporting goods store, but knowest thou that the economy will take away thy Broncos cap from thine head?
The biblical reference is deliberate, and they only get more explicit from here on out. Randy represents the austerity crowd. Every time there is an economic crash, they respond with fear.
We must all wear sheets instead of buying clothes that need detergent. Instead of cars that take gasoline, we can get around on llamas from Drake's farm. Instead of video games that take batteries and software, our kids will play with squirrels!
And this is perfectly reasonable. In times of economic uncertainty, cutting spending is the wise and logical move. But it becomes a problem when you take it too far and impose that austerity on everybody else by force, which is what Randy and his new mob of followers do.
We've got guards posted at the malls to make sure nobody gets tempted to buy dumb stuff. And Pat Salzman is doing house checks to make sure nobody's ordering anything stupid online.
When Mr. Garrison buys a stand mixer, he gets stoned with squirrels. The stand mixer is not a part of the 3 essentials: water, bread, and margaritas. This is ripped straight from the Bible story where Jesus saved a woman who was about to be stoned to death for adultery by saying, "Let who is without sin cast the first stone." South Park puts a little spin on it.
Whichever of you guys has never bought anything frivolous, go ahead and huck the next squirrel.
This scene also mocks the way governments tend to cut funding for anything they deem non-essential in a time of crisis, while politicians retain their perks. They're cutting funding for schools and hospitals and public parks, but they will never cut funding for the military or the police. They need those guys to tear gas you in case you get any ideas that might involve regime change. And they will also keep up with their foreign travel, fancy offices, and 200 assistants. Those are necessary, you see. South Park goes hard on austerity. Cutting personal and public spending is a reasonable reaction to an economic crisis, but it has its limitations.
We've done everything we can, and yet the economy has not improved. Worse, it has declined. Poor Bart here just lost his job at Little Caesars Pizza.
You would think this is easy. Bart lost his job because people were buying stuff from Little Caesars, which meant they couldn't afford to pay him, so they fired him. Randy is the one telling people not to spend any money, so you would think he makes a connection, but that's obviously too much work. It's always easier to just blame somebody else. That Jew, of course, is Kyle, and he has the solution.
The economy isn't some vengeful being that takes things away from us. The economy is just made up of people, and people have just lost their faith in it.
What is Kyle's solution to this crisis, by the way?
What people really should be doing is spending more. Spending is fine.
That's genius, but it's also a little naive. Yes, the economy is just us. The size of the economy is measured by the value of things we trade between ourselves. Bread, haircuts, cars, OF subscriptions and such. If the economy is good, A baker who sells bread may turn around and spend the money he makes to get a fancy haircut, a new car, or anything else he wants. The barber, the car salesman, and all the people receiving the money that the baker spends also turn around and spend that money on other stuff. Round and around the money goes. We call that a booming economy. But if people stop buying bread because they're all scared of gluten, the baker makes less money. So he skips the haircut, sells the car, and cuts spending on everything else. The barber and the car salesman notice the less money coming in, so they reduce their own spending. Now restaurants have fewer customers coming in, waiters receive smaller tips, and they also cut their own spending. Round and around it goes until no one is spending any money. And if nobody is spending, nobody is earning. Somebody somewhere has to spend money before you can earn it. If spending hits zero, businesses collapse and people get fired. And that's called a crash. It's the logical conclusion of too much austerity. So, Kyle encouraging people to spend is the reasonable solution to the problem, but it is not practical. Spending might be good for the economy, but it's not always good for you. You don't want to be the first guy to spend your last $20 in hopes that it'll encourage everybody else to spend and jumpstart the economy again. This is why the economists often fail miserably with their predictions. The economy is not run by science or logic. It's run by vibes, man. When people feel flush, they spend, and when they feel broke, they stop. When they're optimistic about the future, they spend, and when they're scared, they stop. A lot of the stuff we buy isn't even necessary. You wouldn't buy a Lamborghini to drive to work. Lots of cars can do the same thing for way less money. You buy a Lamborghini to show Honda drivers that you're better than them. Then you wake up from that dream and take the bus to work because you can't even afford a Honda. And no, I'm not talking about myself. It's the other guy who lives in my house and looks exactly like me. Most purchases are emotional, and these emotional purchases are driven by vibes, which in turn drives the economy. You can't predict vibes, so the best economists can do is to react to what is happening and try to convince people that their vibes are wrong, which doesn't always work. The only way to reverse an economic crash is to make people feel optimistic about the future again. You have to spread those good vibes, man. And this is what Kyle does.
It is an American Express Platinum card. It has no spending limit. Do not be afraid. This is only plastic.
This is so on point. All the reasonable people will spend their money today if they think that they'll be getting more money tomorrow. Without that faith in getting more money in the future, people stop spending. And you need that spending to sustain economic prosperity. But the vibes and faith aren't enough. Even Kyle realizes this. You need concrete action. So while Randy and his austerity gang try to stop him, Kyle makes the ultimate sacrifice.
He's paying for everyone's debts.
It's not a smart decision, but that's why it's called a sacrifice.
Kyle! Kyle, you have to stop this! No, Kyle, you'll be in debt for the rest of your life!
This is an allusion to Jesus' death on the cross.
Why would he do this?
So that people have money to spend.
Even Randy shows up to get his free money.
There's about $17,000 worth here.
After a whole day of paying off South Park's debt, Kyle passes out.
He paid for our debt so we could spend once more.
This is South Park teaching governments what to do in a crisis. Cut taxes for the regular people, hire those regular people to work on new infrastructure projects, and sometimes just straight up give people money. If people have more money in their pockets, they will spend some of it, which will encourage everybody else to spend and restart the virtuous cycle all over again. But this is America. We only give bailouts to banks and corporations that happen to have a lot of employees in swing states. If you don't live in a swing state and you're also not a banker, then good luck. You'll get maybe $600. And that money is usually just printed out of thin air, so the government is just setting you up for inflation and another crash a couple of years down the line. And then, of course, there's the national debt, or in Kyle's case, his horrendous credit card bill. It's probably what makes him collapse. Once their debts are paid, the people of South Park go back to spending like maniacs all over again.
Wow, the new Margaritaville with salsa dispenser. Oh, we need this.
This scene tells you exactly where the problem comes from. This is South Park throwing a dig at Randy's consumerism once more. That's the message here. Spending is good for the economy, but you still need to be disciplined with it. If too many people buy stupid stuff with money that they don't have, you know what you get?
But we must not forget the sacrifice one person made to restore our faith and make us believe in the economy once again.
A tired Kyle braces himself for all the gratitude coming his way.
The person we must thank every day for his amazing sacrifice, Barack Obama.
Ah, come on!
Here, Kyle is all of us as South Park skewers politicians. We make sacrifices, we do the jobs, and we run the businesses. We are the economy. But the politicians always take credit for good economic conditions. They always claim it's their policies that make everything better. It's not your hard work, not your sacrifices, and not even the horrendous amount of debt your children and grandchildren will be stuck with. No, it's Joe Biden. It's always Joe Biden, or Obama, or Trump, or whichever clown won the most recent popularity contest in your country. They did it all. You did nothing. So please, rise and thank them.